Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? I don't know that I love this idea. I love part of this idea, which means Derek Carr wouldn't be the Saints quarterback anymore. So Bill Barnwell, who does a really good job over at ESPN, has a piece up at ESPN.com that's got to be a 5,000-word feature. And it's so rare because nobody writes 5,000-word features anymore because it's impractical. Like, all the data suggests people don't sit down and read a feature for 30 minutes. It's just, that's why you so seldom see them. People want quick, short, go, get to the point, boom, move on. It's just the nature of society. Now, well, I guess you can get away with it when it's Dak Prescott and his contract and it's the Dallas Cowboys because of their reach and all the appeal therein. But I am someone who will sit down and read this, and Bill Barnwell did a really masterful job with it. And it's Dak Prescott's Cowboys future, new contract or test free agency. And so Barnwell in this piece goes through these large-scale different sections about Dak's contract and everything. And there's this feature, like there's this part of the line, there's this part that's like, jump to a topic. The road that led to the impasse, the no trade, no tag clause, the inexplicable quote from Jerry Jones, can the Cowboys afford their core? How does Dak compare to other quarterbacks? Where does Lamar have to do with this? What could Prescott's deal look like? Who could Dallas target if he walks? And should the Cowboys actually move on? Like, those are, if you don't read the whole thing, you go to any one of those sections. Again, this is like a 5,000-word expose. The point that I will direct your attention to here is the who could Dallas target if he walks? And there's some interesting names. The most obvious is Trey Lance, who is already on the roster. Trey Lance was the former number 3 overall pick of San Francisco. We know it didn't work out there. And Trey Lance is now a member of the Dallas Cowboys. That's probably the most likely scenario. They also lay out a scenario that would include several free agents. I told you, this is a long, I'm still scrolling. Kirk Cousins. Now, this makes sense if you just think about it intuitively. The Falcons signed Kirk Cousins, and then they promptly went and drafted Michael Penix 8th overall. So if Penix develops this year, it's plausible to think next year the Falcons could try to get some value for Cousins if they're going to make Penix their franchise quarterback. And then the one we should pay attention to, he mentions Derek Carr. He also mentioned Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold, and then the possibility of drafting Dak Prescott's replacement. Let me read for you just very quickly what Bill Barnwell wrote about Derek Carr and the possibility of Derek Carr going to Dallas. Here's what he wrote. If the Saints disappoint this season, they likely would end up moving on from Carr, who only has $10 million in guarantees left on his deal after this season. They would struggle to eat the $40 million in dead money from his contract if they trade him after the season, but they could designate him as a post-June 1 release to free up more than $30 million in short-term space. That could come in handy if they decide to try to sign Prescott. He goes on to say Carr's in the same bucket list as Cousin, lesser, older version of Dak, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, whatever, blah. The point being that if Derek Carr underwhelms this year and the Saints want to move on, Dallas could look at Derek Carr as a possible veteran replacement. Now, I want to say that I fundamentally disagree with this point from Bill Barnwell because there's two scenarios. Number one, if Derek Carr plays well, then the Saints are going to retain him. They restructured his deal. I have said and maintained the Saints are financially bound to Derek Carr for 2 more years because of the restructuring of the deal. I cannot imagine a world where the New Orleans Saints eat $40 million in dead money on Derek Carr's contract. Even if you've designated post-June 1 and so it's lesser next year, you're still, again, kicking the can down the road, which they do, but you're still eating $40 million in dead money, and I can't see them doing that. I just can't see that as a scenario. So Derek Carr, I think, is going to be on the New Orleans Saints roster this year and next year, no matter what. But if he plays well, he's back. And if he plays poorly, and even if you play out the scenario that Barnwell just unfolded, if Derek Carr plays poorly and the Saints do move on from him, what team's going to want to go make him their franchise quarterback? It's implausible. At that point, it would be like, all right, you are a failed starter in Oakland. You're a failed starter in New Orleans. Two teams have tried to make you their franchise. You're not that. The best you're going to be is effectively what Jameis Winston now is Cleveland, where you've got your guy in Deshaun Watson, who's the $200 million quarterback. I get it. That's not a great deal. It's not a great contract. We understand all that. But Jameis isn't going there to compete with Deshaun Watson to be the starter. He's going to Cleveland to be the backup to Deshaun Watson. That's effectively what he is now. So that there's no difference for Derek Carr if he busts here in New Orleans another season. So all that to say, I don't know why Dallas would sign Derek Carr. The flip side of that is, if the Saints did move on from Derek Carr and had $40 million in dead cap money, you don't have enough money to pay Dak Prescott. Now, I would prefer Dak Prescott over Derek Carr. I think Dak Prescott has a higher ceiling. He has not realized that ceiling yet, but he has been a perennial playoff caliber quarterback. Derek Carr has not. He's made the playoffs twice in his career. That's it. So, in one of the years when they were good, he didn't even get to play in the playoffs because he got injured. So, he's not a player. He's not even a playoff quarterback. He's a stat compiler in the regular season who's not good enough to get a team consistently in the playoffs. Dak has consistently been in the playoffs. They just haven't won in the playoffs. You know who else did that for a long time? Matthew Stafford. Really good quarterback, put up good numbers, got Detroit into the playoffs, and they never did anything. He goes to the Rams, better situation, boom, Super Bowl. I think Dak, in a different scenario, different situation, different team, could find a similar path to Matthew Stafford. I'm not saying that's in New Orleans. I'm just saying I believe that's possible. I do not believe that's a possible scenario for Derek Carr. So if somehow it could work out that the Saints and the Cowboys could trade quarterbacks, I'd take Dak over Derek Carr in a millisecond. And again, that's not to say Derek Carr or Dak is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I don't believe that he is today. But I don't believe Derek Carr is a top 20 quarterback in the NFL, and I believe Dak is probably somewhere around the top 10. So it would be a dramatic improvement from what you have, still not what you want. My option, my best option, as I said this year in the draft, and will continue to say, is to go draft. Use a first-round pick to draft your franchise. Do what teams that end up with franchise quarterbacks do. They take their swing in round 1. Go draft your franchise. Or you can keep picking Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler and hoping that a day 3 pick hits. Maybe. Probably not. Maybe. Or you could do what the Bengals did with Joe Burrow. You can get aggressive. You can move up and take your franchise quarterback. Do what the Falcons just did. You can call it stupid as you want. And I get it. But you ain't winning without a franchise quarterback, and they took a swing. Let's see if we can get one. Okay. Respect. Saints have done it once in their history. Still think that's going to be the better path. Anyway, you want to read it. Bill Barnwell, a really, really, really extensive piece about Dak Prescott's contract situation, how New Orleans could be a potential landing spot, and how Carr could end up with a star on the helmet. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.